Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending the session today. Let me welcome Kristen Rosella, general partner at Global Diligence. Thank you for being with us today, Kristen. Today we're going to discuss a little bit legal tech in terms of international or managing international litigation cases. And we know that this particular point is something that is gaining a lot of attention, especially with distributed legal teams across the world, and the challenges that they encounter whenever they want to cooperate, coordinate, or even work together on a litigation case, on an international case. So, without any further ado, I let you introduce yourself, what you do, Global Diligence a little bit, and then we can move on to the topics of this session today.
Thank you, Hussein, and yes, thank you for organizing today. And I'm really happy to be here and also to be talking about this topic, which I believe is very important. So Global Diligence Alliance is a nonprofit organization that's based in the US. It's a 501c3 in the US, but we are a global legal alliance and we operate across the world. And so tools like App4Legal and legal tech are extremely important for the success of our cases, but also our peace of mind in being able to operate securely and efficiently. We address some of the most extreme racial, social, economic, and environmental injustices around the world. And our founding partners or members are in East Africa, South America, Southeast Asia, Europe, and the United States. So we're consistently trying to coordinate complex litigations that are truly international.
Yeah. So how many team members? It seems you are very well distributed. So we're talking about a team that has how many members?
So the Global Legal Alliance is different actually organizations that are members. So all of us are public interest lawyers around the world, and the members operate from their home country. I'm currently in Cambodia at the moment, but often I'm in Europe or the US. In total, we have about 15 to 20 lawyers at any given moment. On most of the cases, we also have, where we're coordinating on a daily basis, 5 to 7 lawyers on a matter, plus external partners who need access, secure access to documents, videos, where we might be collaborating on the evidence collection, the documentation, and the investigation aspects. So there's a lot of moving pieces and also people that are involved.
Absolutely, that's a very distributed team. So let me ask you a general question about what differentiates an international litigation case from a local, country-related litigation case, and why it's so different? What makes it different?
Yeah, so I guess there's a couple things. One, the easy answer to that question is the law. So we do cases that are both at the national level, regional level, or international level. So at the national level, that's in the domestic legal systems. The regional level, it could be in regional human rights mechanisms. And at the international level, it could be anything from some of our lawyers practice at the International Criminal Court, some of the other international tribunals. And then we have an added layer, which is that we often have hybrid teams, which are bringing forth cross-border cases in foreign domestic jurisdictions. So those might be cases where, for example, we might have a human trafficking case where the survivor is in Cambodia, but the defendant or perpetrator is Australian, and the case needs to be brought in Australia. So we need a team of lawyers that are Australian, Cambodian, as well as potentially experts in a particular subject matter. So what makes it international is really the cross-border nature, but it also can be the law that we're applying in the different cases that we do.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, what we can say that it requires a lot of resources, right, to manage
Absolutely.
an international litigation case. Not all law related. It's also related to the country resources, the teams that will be working on this litigation case, and so on and so forth. So it's something, it's a project, right? It's a big project.
It's a project, and there's a huge project management aspect. And I actually was going to add that I made that note to myself today, even when I was preparing for this, because so much of our work is also project management, and then being a not-for-profit that is assisting victims or survivors of genocide, of human trafficking, of environmental destruction. We are often having budgets that we have to manage. We have donors, we have external partners. So there's a lot of contact information. There's a lot of documents. There's a lot to manage on top of just the litigation case and the evidence that you would normally expect in a litigation.
Interesting. So if you want to describe, this international, the management of international litigation case, it's been there, right? Before the pandemic, in the pandemic, the pandemic, and post-pandemic. So I would like to know this, if we take this timeline, if you just decompose it, right? And you just discuss, how did you do it? How did you manage, right? International litigation case before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and post-pandemic now. What are you doing? How are you doing?
Yeah, so it's a good question, because my background, actually, I started law in corporate complex litigation. So I started at a big firm, so I knew about some of the legal tech that's been around and that's existed. But as a human rights public interest organization, a lot of that technology seemed inaccessible to us, whether it's resource or knowledge about technology, or the ability to train our teams to use that technology, or even access in the different jurisdictions that we work. So pre-pandemic, we were really operating on, the typical just document storage systems, and not necessarily, in organized fashion, but more in a folder system, let's say. Communications were sort of more difficult to manage, more difficult to keep together. It was difficult to file emails along with, in that kind of folder system, because you have to print, etc. And it was a bit messy. I would say the pandemic pushed us a bit to get more efficient, because especially once we realized that the remote situation, these hybrid in office, outside of us, work from home models were here to stay. And we've always been remote because it allows us to be quite flexible. Our members do have offices in some of the jurisdictions, but a lot of us are permanently remote. So the permanence, I think that the pandemic left, that this had changed the working environment for the better, pushed us to sort of explore the legal tech again that I knew about, but kind of thought maybe it wasn't possible before the pandemic. And so and once the pandemic hit, and once we discovered that there were options out there, then the idea of being able to consolidate our matters, to be able to organize, to be able to track, to be able to have metrics and statistics, to know, to be able to see a big picture, a full picture of what was happening, not only at a matter level, which is really where we were before the pandemic, but now at a practice management level, so that we could see not only by practice area, but also as a business.
Yeah. So what we can say that the level of collaboration, between legal teams, distributed something. Some people are in Australia, some people are in the United States, others are in Europe, in Africa, in Asia. So if you want to discuss this point in terms of how collaboration, how legal tech had brought some increased collaboration between legal team, especially in terms of international litigation case. How would you describe it, and how, if you want to measure it as a percentage, right? How did legal tech increase? How much did it increase the efficient collaboration between legal teams across the world?
I mean, I think 100%, that's an easy percentage to put on, because I think 100% it increased our collaboration, both from our evidence analysis to the actual matter management, to then the business management. You know, in a lot of our international litigations, we have, as I mentioned, you know, in the beginning, they're all have a cross-border nature. So if we're looking at, let's say, you know, a case that's about genocide and, you know, occurring in, let's say, East Africa, we might need a lawyer from East Africa, but yet it's looking like the case may not be able to be brought at the regional or national level in East Africa for whatever reason. So then we have to coordinate with a lawyer that might be in the jurisdiction where the case can be brought. And then we need an expert, you know, often we need experts, whether it's on the investigation or it's on the, you know, subject matter, and then, you know, both the legal mechanism that we're using, the actual jurisdiction. So being able to bring all of those people into one place where they are able to not just collaborate on a document, you know, for example, like you can in Google Drive, that's of course extremely useful, but this allows us to go further because it keeps our evidence organized. It allows us to organize the document, you know, and see the same thing. So, and then also the communications. We really, I think one of the biggest things legal tech has done is allow us to organize and keep our communications in a better fashion, and that has, you know, created an institutional knowledge, you know, so it's there, it's right, it's just at our fingertips to see what happened in a case or matter.
It's excellent, because I just recall that you just mentioned something very important, the term institutional knowledge. And by the way, this is part of knowledge management in any organization, and this is maybe this is out of scope, but in international litigation cases, I believe that in order to solve cases, you need to have a history of other cases or similar cases. So that also legal tech influenced the way you really conserve your knowledge and then use it to minimize, like, the cost of, or even the resources allocated to other litigation cases, because this is, I think this is very important for budgetary reasons, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. Because when I see institutional knowledge, is not just that for that one particular matter, being able to go back and track who we talked to, or find the context of a particular person, or, you know, persons, because the cases that we work on often have tens or hundreds of survivors that are involved that we might be working with. But also, building that institutional knowledge within the organization, so you're not rewriting or redoing the same legal research over and over, but rather you can update. And it was really important for us because, you know, our model is a bit new, where we're not operating in silos. So some of our lawyers, our public interest lawyers, are experts on, let's say, human trafficking and exploitation, while others are experts in genocide. Others might be experts in environment, and others might be in something like consumer protection, which seems completely unrelated. But this kind of legal tech allows us to securely share the different strategies and be able to ask each other questions. You know, now there's obviously we have the confidentiality in place, and not everything is 100%, you know, accessible, because we also do have like some of the private locks, but it doesn't prevent us from being able to have this this cross-sector collaboration and this multi-directional knowledge sharing at the institutional level.
Excellent. So, so in terms of knowledge management, the systems or legal tech is contributing. Now, let me also ask something that is related to the core of what you're doing. From what you're saying, I can conclude that legal tech is contributing to the human side of law, right?
Yeah.
And this is very, very interesting. It's very amazing for me that you're dealing with cases that are directly related to the human well-being, right? In different contexts. And legal tech is here to accelerate the pace, accelerate the race, accelerate the speed of resolving these issues. How human and how interesting is this? I just want your thoughts about this. you know.
Well, I mean, so it's actually the reason I like, doing these webinars, or I might be a bit of an odd choice, let's say, for a webinar like this. I'm not, a nonprofit is not a typical,
Yeah, I know.
yeah, Hussein knows, because he's been through the whole assisting me in design and
I know that the
adapting
nonprofit
systems.
side,
Yeah.
this is very interesting.
Yeah.
So I like to hear more about it.
So I really like to talk, on this topic, because I feel like legal tech, it's not only helped us, but I also feel like it can help, in collaboration with some of, our partner organizations, our, the other nonprofits out there that work in different sectors. I was fortunate enough to have the exposure at the law firm to know that some things existed, but, to be able to find a solution that's adaptable to the nonprofit sector is not always easy. And I know that I'm plugging App4Legal a little bit here, but it was one of the only ones where I really was able to customize to the level that we needed in such a unique area that we are, because we aren't a law firm, we aren't a typical nonprofit, and so we have all these needs. And and so the legal tech itself was something that was important, but then the customization, the ability to adapt it to our needs, and that's what I feel is really valuable to, at the human level, is really valuable to the sector, that is the human rights sector, and it can grow. We just need to increase that exposure so that more efficiency can be shared.
Excellent. This is very important. It's music to my ears, because corporate social responsibility, again, legal tech companies, it's true, they provide a solution that is subscription based, but if we can understand, for example, the cause of using it, and in your case, it's very useful. It's very interesting to know how much it's accelerate the way you manage your job, because if you manage your job in a very good way, people who are stakeholders, let me say stakeholders that are related to you in a way or another, they will benefit in a very great way. So this is why it's amazing to hear about how legal tech is basically contributing to your job, to the human rights job. Yeah. So now as a manager, right? As a let me ask this question from a managerial perspective. You mentioned that there's the human rights section, the human rights element, and the project management aspect of any international litigation case. For this particular point, I'm going to highlight it a little bit here and ask you about, as a manager, right? How do you increase visibility, and how do you basically manage your operations for each individual litigation case? A good example would be great here as well, but without mentioning any names, but we need to have some of your experience, some of your knowledge.
Okay, well, so this is something we're consistently trying to improve, both at the myself and other managers on the team, other partners on the team, because the legal tech is new to our field, and that I am it's not something that's used as widely as it is in the law firms. So we have had to think creatively sometimes in how to introduce it. And, often our cases are so large, and they have, tens and thousands, sometimes millions of pages of evidence to deal with on top of. Then you have the filings with the court, et cetera. You have deadlines, but we have this added layer of, budgets, and we might have multiple cases running that are related to a project. So one thing that's been really important to us is to be able to group certain matters together, whether they might be, quote unquote corporate, which we actually use the corporate label a little bit differently, because we don't have pure corporate, but then we have the litigation matters. But it's really important. Let's say we have a country where we're carrying out a project, and we might on one hand have an investigation, but the same budget might also be supporting legal reform or legal training. And so to be able to see the full picture of that project the matter management is incredibly important to track at the more detailed level for each piece of the project that's going on. But the kind of container management, that grouping, is critical for us to be able to see what's happening at the country level. So we use that in, I think, what is a slightly different way than most would use that option. And so the legal tech allows us to look at it in those different layers. And, so when we have, like I mentioned, the case that was cross-border with Australia and Cambodia, that case was one matter, one case, one international litigation that we had in a project where we were working with 12 partners out of Cambodia, one partner in Hong Kong, and then it involved both training, case litigation management, and advocacy around legal reform. So so that was one where we really used these different layers to be able to count or track the litigations, the stages of the litigations, and report to the donor on that part, but also be able to track, let's say, trainings as a corporate matter, including the number of people, how people identify, et cetera, to get that level of statistics. And then at the same time, we could have through the kind of bucket view, a country view of what was happening on that project across the three streams of work.
Interesting. So have very high level of visibility over these, 3 countries, different teams. It's like a net. It's like a net. You need to have the proper tool to manage all of this in one time.
And then time and budget on top of that, tracking, making sure people are not overworking, underworking, and we're not running out of funds. So, lots of pieces.
Lots of pieces, yeah. In terms of financial, let me ask this question. A typical law firm, they operate in a billable hours business model. An in-house legal team might study the efficiency, so how much they are reducing the cost of their operations. For you, what are the good indicator for, let's say, what is your business model? So it's about managing the resources to what happens if the resources are under allocated? What happens if the resources are over allocated? And what do you do in these cases?
Yeah, so okay, unlike a law firm which might bill by the hour, as a public interest organization and nonprofit, we don't necessarily bill by the hour, and there's different kinds of different foundations, different donors have different rules about how they want invoices, etc. And so being able to track the amount of work, even if we're looking at it by day, which is kind of the typical way that the nonprofit sector works, especially when you're working at a lawyer kind of legal consultant level. So when we're looking at it by day, we can still use the legal tech to look at the efficiency and look at how long, and estimate. I think it's really useful for some of the junior lawyers for us to be able to estimate, don't spend more than this time, or if you are spending more than this time, please come, to us and let's have a chat about it. So, you don't spin your wheels or anything like that. And so I think that the technology allows people to be able to see, okay, wait, I've been at this, it's time to go back to the more senior lawyer and ask questions. Or at the end of a month, being able to see across the board which projects you spent your time on, to make sure that you're not overspending time on one project when most of your budget might be pulled from a different project, right? So it's really important to be able to have equal proportions based on the budget, because we have that business model. And as a nonprofit, we are supposed to, we want to be efficient, effective, just like the for-profit sector, but all of our at the end of the day, it's really about impact for us. So we need to be able to see both impact and then the efficiency alongside it, rather than the bottom line, the dollar sign.
Yeah. So this drives me to the next question, or to the next part. So a good manager, to have a visibility over anything, he needs indicators, right? He needs some statistics. And I know from my company that App4Legal provide a lot of dashboards in the system, right? Dashboards related to matters, dashboards related to litigation cases. How much do you use these dashboards to make decisions? And when did you, or when do you use such indicators for which decisions? So I would like to know this how it works with you, because again, at the end of the day, you make decisions, but you don't make these decisions based on, you know, anything. You need to base your decision on data,
Right.
So how do you use data in the system to make decisions?
Yeah.
Or to enhance your decision? That's it.
Yeah, it definitely enhances decision. And I think the dashboard allows us to have that visual picture, which is important because sometimes the numbers, I think they go in and out of your head. So having the visual, especially the graphs and the charts, has been very valuable to us. And then being able to see what's really active and what might be a little bit inactive at the moment allows us to allocate our time properly. And then I think the workflow is really important for us, which I know is maybe not necessarily the data, but being able to track how people are moving through the various matters does give us a sense of how much more we can take on, or if we can accept new projects, because you know we don't have unlimited resources, so we can't just like hire on the spot like a nonprofit or like a for-profit might be able to, or a law firm might be able to. So we have to make those strategic decisions. And I think, you know, that's where the big picture for the manager is really key, both at the business level, but also at the matter level, being able to really see on a day-to-day basis what is going on.
Yeah.
Not always waiting to the end of the month when it might be too late, right?
Yeah, of course. Day-to-day indicators are very helpful for this type of management. Now, let me go, if you like, let us discuss a little bit the documentation side of the international litigation cases. You mentioned that there's a lot of documentation. There's pictures, there's documents, there's big files what can you say about now in App4Legal, for example? We know that we do have our document management systems, and we integrate with different cloud-based drives, for example, OneDrive, Google Drive, SharePoint, and so on and so forth. We know how much documentation is important. Now, I would like to know from you, how did you use these tools to manage this important part of the litigation cases management of the documentation in your case?
Yeah, so we have a lot of documentation in our cases. So we have the court filings that might be going on, and then we have the actual evidence that might be collected from the ground and collected from different parties on the ground. And the security, I also just want to add that the security is really key and has been the ability to have two-step verification and be sure that the way that documents are uploaded are safe. So that is like kind of the first thing we looked at. But then when it came to the syncing, that was critical because some of the files that we have are huge. Like they can be videos of an incident that might be occurring in a protest or of, you know, somebody that might be, you know, looking at a particular crime site at the moment, or, you know, so those files are heavy. And so I like two things that I'll talk about App4Legal because it's the one I know the most because I use it the day to day. But the two things that we found really valuable were, one, just the ability to put a hyperlink in there, which sometimes we just hyperlink to a folder where we might have some super heavy files that we don't want, you know, sitting in the App4Legal document tab. But the other thing that's really useful and has been extremely valuable for our lawyers is the syncing, the integration with the different document systems, storage systems, because then we can work seamlessly between the hard drive and the virtual. And so that has been very easy for us to drop in, particularly to drop in those really heavy files when we need to upload them into the system before we might tag them with some of the tag features that are allowed in the App4Legal.
Yeah. So then these integrations are important. Basically, these integrations are very important to you when it comes to big files, to big folders, to great amount of data. Now, and again, I'm just I need to take like a summary here. Not I'm just gonna continue the questions, but as a summary, let's say other lawyers are interested in doing this, right? And they are now advocates of human rights. They want to serve some cause, and they want to like have their own practice similar to you, or similar to any organization working in this human right and the human rights field. So what are, if as a lawyer and as a manager, right? What do you suggest to establish a well oiled machine in place? Do you suggest, you know, so when does legal tech comes? It comes at the end, or it comes at the beginning of the establishment process, or at the middle? Where does it come?
Well, I think it comes at the beginning for sure, and it really came. The legal tech really forced us to also look at our protocols, you know, to ensure that things are happening in a systematic way. Because believe it or not, the lawyers, they often just want to work in their own style and off on the side, but they don't necessarily are not following a particular system, even with themselves. They just create new folder systems every time they have a matter, and so things like Google Drive, Dropbox, et cetera, can get very, very difficult to search and to organize. And so like for us, being able to think about how those systems were going to flow, what would be the process when a document came in, or when a matter comes in, and then the first document comes in, does the matter start with an email? Does it start with, you know, a document? When do we open it? What are we storing? Because maybe we aren't storing every single email, because, you know, sometimes emails can just be like scheduling back and forth with time zones, and we don't necessarily need that. So being able to have the systems, then being able to have legal tech, the actual legal tech being adaptable to what we do. I just can't say how important that was enough times, because, and maybe it's because I started my law practice in the US. So a lot of the legal tech that I originally looked at, and also when I came back in the human rights field and looked at legal tech again, a lot of it was very US focused. And by that, I mean, it's not a bad thing, but it just was very difficult for me to explain to my colleagues in Cambodia, for example, who work from a civil law system, not a common law system, don't necessarily have depositions, don't have this or that. And when I couldn't change tags or practice areas, you know, things are called different things. So being able to have that adaptability, that customization, and then, so rather than us having to, I guess what I'm trying to say is, rather than us having to adapt our systems to the legal tech was able to adapt to the system we needed that was best for the people we work for. And that's what made the difference for us and allowed us to be efficient. If we just adapted a system like something that was US focused, and I'm working with the lawyers from Brazil, you know, let's say East Africa and Southeast Asia, and I'm having to force and train them how to use something that's for the US system, that doesn't increase my efficiency, that decreases my efficiency. So it was really that the legal tech could come to us and help us, rather than us having to bend over backwards and sideways and whatnot in order to be able to use it. It's just right there. And then the syncing and the integration, you know, was an easy way for us to also introduce it to lawyers who might not be so used to, you know, using legal tech and looking at it from a matter level. So it was like an easy way to step in, and then being able to look at our systems all the way down to the matter level and all the way up to the business level. That's just really hard to find. And so that's why I'm very a big proponent of using it in this field, and I'm, you know, encourage other people to try that are in the nonprofit field, whether it's pure law or even more of a customer project management type of nonprofit, because it's a similar type of value.
Absolutely. By the way, what you just mentioned is a very important, you know, principle in management. Let me say in our organizational behavior, where I'm really an expert in this. And you said something very important, that one of the hardest thing to do is basically to let the team adopt and adapt to a new legal technology. And the degree of customization in any solution should be an advantage to the software, not not something to be not a drawback. It should be like something beneficial. And this is what you just mentioned. Legal teams, they are there, right? And you need to come with a tool, not to disturb or disrupt what they are doing, because they simply won't do it. They will tell you, I'm not gonna do this extra mile. It's taking a lot of time. I'm not gonna adapt to your way of doing things. If this is something that is good for the United States, it's not good for Cambodia or for Brazil. So what you just said is very important. So you got this tool, and because it's customizable, you told them how to do it, and the team in the United States is using it. In Cambodia, they are using it. In Hong Kong, they are using it. In France, and in different places, without this, fear of having something very country specific. And this is very important. So it's an excellent insight, by the way. It's a principle to follow when it comes to managing distributed teams, by the way.
Yeah. And I think it's also something that we have to look for just in this day and age, because making people mold to one way isn't how the world works anymore. If we're going to collaborate and truly collaborate and listen to each other, we have to be able to use systems that are that are adaptable, that people can actually use, and that meet the needs. So that was extremely important to us.
Excellent. Now I'm gonna ask you a hard question. So excuse me for this.
Haven't you asked me some already?
So one very interesting. So financial people in finance, they always measure their return on investment. Whenever you talk about anything, they ask ROI. They need the return on investment. My question to you is, how much do you think legal tech increases the likelihood of winning an international litigation case?
Yes, no, this is definitely the hardest question you've asked. So, no, but I think the answer is that it increases it. Do I have to give a percentage again? I'm just kidding. I think, okay, for us, the cases we work on are sometimes those cases that seem impossible to win. And, a lot of times we're still losing, because we might be going up against some of the most powerful corporations or governments in the world. And so we're on that sort of underdog kind of side many times, and we're under-resourced many times. But where I can for sure say that it helps in if I'm taking it outside of the efficiency of the business part, that it helps to reduce mistakes, and so that helps to increase wins, because when we're tracking the right information and the right people can access that information, and more communication and collaboration is happening, then new ideas are happening, new strategies are applied, but mistakes are less. So that's the value that I can that I can really verbalize. But it's still not an easy question to answer, but that's where I can see the increase and the value from an ROI kind of perspective.
Yeah, you can feel it, but you cannot measure it now. You can
right.
It's there, but you cannot measure it. Maybe because there's not the proper indicator now, but you can feel, or inside, that this is something that is helping a lot the legal teams internationally working on international cases.
Yeah, and I also think it's because sometimes the impact in our field is difficult to measure to begin with. But like if we start to break it down, like we do any legal case or any litigation from a number of clients, number of motions, number of pieces of evidence. So from that standpoint, if we break down the big success, so not just looking at winning the case, but the little successes that happen along the way, then for sure there's a number increase, and we can see it in the data. But also remember, some of the cases we're dealing with are oftentimes historical, so they could be looking back 10, 20 years. And also they are cases that go on for sometimes 10, 15 years. So the length of time is also sometimes at a disadvantage, but that's where the institutional part and legal tech helps us to keep track of it over that span of time.
Yeah, interesting to say also to discuss a little bit the relationship with the different stakeholders. You have the donors from one side and the beneficiaries from the other side. How do you manage the relationship? How did you manage the relationship with them before legal tech? And how do you use the software to really communicate with your stakeholders from one side and the beneficiaries from the other side? And what type of information do you use from your, for App4Legal, for example? And what do you disclose? What do you give them? And how do you manage this, relationship from two sides, from the donors from one side, right, and the beneficiaries or the other stakeholders from the other side?
Yeah, so I think the one thing I can say is before using legal tech, and especially App4Legal in our case, it was, knowledge was staying within one lawyer on this particular topic. So relationships were, mainly led by one lawyer. And so the knowledge about a donor, the communications about that donor would really stay in that lawyer's head. Of course, we would take meeting minutes and, they might go into a Word document, but, to be honest, clicking, first of all, finding, then clicking, then opening a Word document, then scrolling, if we were really being honest, how many times you go back to look at meeting minutes of, the hundreds of, especially web meetings that happened during COVID, were occurring, how often was it easy to do that? Not at all. So one thing that the legal tech helped was to keep track of communications, but in an easier way. Again, I'm most familiar with App4Legal, so the notes function is something, and being able to send emails right to those notes, and then also to actually enter notes. So you could leave notes between two lawyers, not just about the case, but you can leave notes, also about context, or if you're making a matter that might be more related to the donor or the donor management side or project management side, leaving notes about particular communications so that everybody's on the same page who's working on that project that's funded by that donor. So that made less things. It made it easier to remember things and to keep moving forward rather than having to always look back, find something, and then move forward after that. The partners, it's kind of a similar process. So the partners, they're kind of our external partners, or sometimes also our clients, because sometimes our clients are individuals or communities, but they're also NGOs or other nonprofits sometimes. And so being able to also, share certain documents just right in the system rather than having multiple copies or versions floating around is key. And also not to have it that final version or the most recent version right on the top is really important to us. And that allows us to, really just pay attention to what's important and to be able to track, the data and share that data as well, rather than getting bogged down in, in some of the admin that we were getting bogged down in before.
Yeah. Interesting. So we reach the place where we need to conclude about this short webinar to conclude, and then open the door for any comments or any questions from our attendees, which I would take this opportunity to thank them for attending this webinar together today. It was we're really happy that you're joining us and listening to what we have to say. Now, to conclude, Kristen, and what do you think are the ways, right, legal tech companies, App4Legal or any other companies, can do to help to help increase the efficiency of managing, right, international litigation cases?
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing is, I think being able to keep ensuring that this kind of legal tech is accessible to organizations like ours, so that we're not, we often do have less resources or less access, but also less knowledge. A lot of my counterparts in similar positions, even at, let's say bigger organizations don't even know that this kind of technology exists. So continuing to have that outreach so that more people are able to take advantage of, secure legal tech solutions like App4Legal and others. And then, I want to see also the legal tech world, I think it's been going in this direction, especially with the integrations of different apps, but being able to, hold all of our information in one place. And on international litigations, that sometimes the practice management side, but also the evidence management side and the analysis side, and those two things coming together in the future, I can really see that benefiting international litigations as well. No, I think it's sort of a new area for human rights organizations to be in and to be taking making use of. But I think there's a real there's real strides to be made, and I think there's a lot of mutually beneficial lessons to learn. Both what organizations like mine can keep learning from the legal tech sector, and then how the legal tech sector can keep adapting to these complex litigations. Because believe me, there's no more complex nothing is more complex than some of the stuff we work at with the various, there's every day is a new surprise. So there's, if the legal tech can keep up with us, then it will be at a new level.
That's good to know. Excellent. Basically, we're really proud working closely with you, Kristen. Helping reshaping this whole sector, I'm gonna say, in the legal world, because I believe, and this is a concluding insight, right? A lot of things are happening in the whole world, right? Natural disasters, wars. Political issues, and we are seeing increasing problems in different areas in the world, right? So I believe that your work is going to be exponentially demanding in the near future, and I hope things will be resolved in different areas in the world. But from what it looks like, it's going to increase. The demand is going to increase for international for like organizations like Global Diligence. You will have increased demand on your services, right? And donors will increase, clients will increase, and the management will get. I'm going to say the management of such business sector is going to be more difficult to do, and you need someone alongside of the road. And I hope that we, as a legal tech solution provider, to be there with you, because beside the financial part, which is there, everybody works for one reason. We take pride in helping or in driving all the way with you in this type of litigation cases, because this is actually amazing to know. A lot of people, different lawyers from different around the world, they are helping people anonymously without looking to their race, their religion, nothing. They're doing an excellent job, and we take pride being your partners in this journey. And I'm really
very appreciative.
I'm really happy you joined us today, and you've been the panelist and the speaker today, because you gave us a lot of insights of what's happening in this particularly the new or a sector that is, in my opinion, it's gonna grow and grow and grow. Everybody wants a lawyer, a legal help from time to time. What about people who's in a disaster? People, human trafficking. As you said, there's a lot of crimes and country crimes. What do you call them? Country specific crimes that these people need help in this case. Yeah. So I really thank you for your efforts. And now, if you have some concluding remarks before opening the questions for our dear attendees, go ahead. Just 2 minutes for you to conclude this webinar today. I really
No, just to say thank you, and we're really appreciative to have you by our side in this journey, and you've been by our side since the very beginning as we've been building and growing, and having the knowledge that you have both at the organizational capacity level and the expertise that you have in this particular area, Hussein, has been extremely valuable for us to do things in a different way, and improve the way that we work. And then also just to know that we have people to go to that, and you all always answer us, you're always there for us right away, very quickly when we're having an issue. And believe me, some of my colleagues are not as techy and they don't love tech as much as me, but they are able to learn the system because we have the support of App4Legal and the team. So we don't just have the technology, but we really feel like we have you alongside of us and the teams that provide us with that personalized service, which is unique, and we're just we really do appreciate that, and we're looking forward to where all of this can take us, and we're also looking forward to sharing it with more of our partners in the sector and collaborating, increasing the collaboration even more.
Excellent.
So thank you.
Thank you very much, Kristen. Let's open the doors for attendees. Do you have any question for us today? I hope so. If you like to put it in the chat, I can discuss it, or if you like to do it alone, to comment, we're here also to just drop your questions and we can answer them. Any questions or any comments or any insight you would like to share with us today? Perfect. I don't think we have any comments today with us. It seems like a very quiet webinar. It's good. Perfect. So we don't have any questions. This is why I'm gonna stop here today. And again, thanking you for this beautiful and interesting topic. I really enjoyed this afternoon with you, Kristen. And of course, I'm gonna see a lot of you.
Yes, you can't get rid of me.
I don't want to. so see you very soon. And our chat is disabled. Let me enable chat.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, that's.
Oh, there actually is a question there. It just came through the Q&A instead of the chat.
Excuse me, and the Q&A. Okay, so how do you see? Thank you very much. Thank you, Raymond. How do you see standardizing tech may affect the quality of legal solution? That's a big standardizing, I think, right? Yeah. How do you see standardizing tech may affect the quality? That's a good question. I think it's related to the section where you said we don't need any country-specific solution. We need something that is customizable, right? Because standardized, I don't know. Just take if you like to ask. Yeah.
No, so I don't think standardizing in creating systems doesn't necessarily mean that we're standardizing or forcing a particular solution on even one matter. And although I am to a certain extent, I like things super organized. I have even realized that in App4Legal in particular, even if we have one project, we're able to keep our systems. So the way that we designed our App4Legal is, across the board, across the business, we can still have a clear picture, but it does still allow each team to adapt. Even the way they use App4Legal, each of them use it a little bit differently and to various degrees, depending on what they're doing at the moment. And so it isn't like we have to even have one particular at the matter level, it might be organized in one fashion, and it might be similar in another matter level. But even inside, we aren't forced for it to be identical, which is important for us because we have so many country systems going on. So I think it's a balance. in terms that we need to reach a standardization so that we can have systems, but not overdo the standardization, because then the system won't work for, especially on international cross-border litigations. So being able to customize it and not having a country-specific solution essentially forced on us, or even to have to adapt from a country-specific solution. Here, it was really, we started at the baseline, and literally everything but, I think, 2 things I'm not allowed to change in App4Legal. So everything else we could change and customize it for our own particular needs. And then we continue to do that even within certain matters and within certain containers, the way that we group them. So, because not everybody thinks in the exact same fashion. So that's why it's a really good question. We don't want the standardization to affect the creativity of the legal solution, but we wanted to increase the effectiveness of the way that people are attempting to implement that legal solution.
Thanks, Kristen. It's a very good answer. That answered my question. Thanks. Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Maha, for the question. Anyone else has any insight to share today with us? Okay. Let's wrap things up. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, our attendees, for joining us in this afternoon with Kristen. And I take this opportunity to thank Kristen again for this webinar. Looking forward working with you as always, and have a beautiful evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.